Today, letting go of emotional baggage.
Dr. Grant Mullen is a medical doctor and anesthesiologist who transitioned into the mental health field after seeing so many of his GP patients struggling with emotional pain. Discovering that there was so much misunderstanding about psychiatry and mental health, Dr. Mullen was driven to educate people, including Christians. His popular title, Emotionally Free, shares this holistic approach: get rid of our emotional baggage, find spiritual peace, and take medications when necessary. Dr. Mullen and his wife, Kathy, speak at seminars around the world and help countless patients one-on-one each year. Please help me welcome Dr. Grant Mullen.
Dr. Mullen, it's so good to have you with us.
Nice to see you again, Leo.
Well, you and I were chatting a little bit in the green room before we came on set, and I am so intrigued and encouraged by the conversation that we had of looking at all of these areas. Now, you're a medical doctor.
Well, actually, I was an anesthetist.
Okay.
Yeah, so I started out even further behind. 'Cause I became an anesthetist, well, one, because I thought it was the most godly specialty, because, you know, that was God's first medical act, to put Adam to sleep. So that's,
I've never heard that before. That's good.
So I actually liked to put people to sleep, and because I didn't have to talk to anyone. So it was a great way of totally avoiding all human contact, other than for 10 seconds. You know, in 10 seconds, in 10 seconds they're gone. But then in the hospital I worked in, it was small, so we only did surgery in the morning. In the afternoons, we all had to do general practice. So the anesthetists became GPs in the afternoon, which of course is the total opposite of anesthesia, because then you have to actually listen to people for more than 10 seconds. But what struck me was the number of people coming to see me with emotional problems.
Really?
And they were mostly Christians.
Uh-oh.
Well, I was a Christian. I attracted a Christian population.
Sure.
And I couldn't believe all these people coming to see me with emotional problems. And I was raised in the church, and I knew that Christians didn't have emotional problems. Because if they did, someone would have talked about it.
What do you mean by emotional problem? Like examples, like what? They just can't control anger, they're depressed, what?
Depressed, yeah. I just saw this overwhelming number of Christians coming to see me with mood disorders, depression, anxiety, mood swings, and they had no idea what to do about it. They didn't know what was wrong with them. Is it a faith issue? Is it just a personality issue? Is it my husband? And so I said, well, why are you talking to me? Because I'm used to, hard medicine. You have heart trouble, or, put the paddles on someone to wake them up. But, I said, why are you coming to see me? Why don't you go to someone in your church or your faith community? And they said, well, I'm ashamed to admit that I'm struggling to my church community because they're all walking in victory. I'm the only one.
Do you find that very common?
Oh, very common, yeah, because there was no sense that their church community was unwelcoming for someone to admit that they were struggling. And so one lady actually said, she said, I tried the church, they couldn't help me. She said, I'm stuck with you. She actually said that to me. Because, one, they're afraid to admit it because they're afraid of being condemned. Right. And others, they did admit it and the church didn't know what to do with them.
It's probably bigger than just a Bible-believing issue.
Yeah, that's
right?
true, yes.
So what did you tell us your story? What did you do? So now you are an anesthetist. You are seeing people in the afternoon. You're attracting this Christian crowd, and all of a sudden you're getting a look at Christians as going, "Oh my,
exactly.
There's a lot of hurting people."
Exactly.
So
that was exactly
do?
my response, because in the church I grew up in, everyone was fine. Everyone was walking in victory. No one ever had a problem, and no one ever had depression because that. In our church, if someone was admitted to hospital, it'd be in the church bulletin, and they'd get a casserole. But if someone had a mental health problem, it would never appear in the bulletin because they just disappeared,
Yeah.
Or they had a nervous breakdown. And, what's a nervous breakdown? So, there was shame attached to having a mental health problem.
Ouch.
I remember when I started in psychiatry, I thought, well, could this even happen to Christians? Because if it did, surely someone would have mentioned it when I was growing up in the church. But it's a concealed problem. Yet it affects 10 to 15% of the population. So 10 to 15% of every congregation has a mood disorder, depression, anxiety, or mood swings. So I just started to attract these people, and so just because I felt so sorry for them, I started to treat them. And much to my astonishment, they got better. Because I was an anesthetist, remember? I didn't know a lot about mental health. But God sort of showed me what was wrong and how they would get better. And then my practice was just overrun with Christians with mood disorders. So I gave up anesthesia, gave up general practice, and then I just did mental health, mostly with Christians, for about 25 years.
Wow. What are pastors saying, or if it's not a pastor, what are they not saying that's not letting people get help in this area?
Well, the number one problem is we just don't talk about it. We pretend it's not there.
We pretend it's not there.
That is absolutely the number one issue, is so that we just don't talk about mental health problems, we don't talk about all the struggles that people are having and what's behind it. And so it's easier and tidier to just say we're all walking in victory by faith, and if you're not, we don't want to hear about it. Or keep that really quiet, and if you have a problem, it's read the Bible and pray more. But then what do you read and what do you pray?
Right.
And so I see all the people who have fallen through the cracks. If you think 10 to 15% of every congregation has a mood disorder, 80% are undiagnosed and untreated. They're just struggling. And then
so they don't know.
Right. They just know there's something wrong, but I don't know what it is. And then if you add all the people who have emotional baggage, you're now at 100% of every congregation.
Yeah,
okay?
That's everybody.
Yeah. And we just don't talk about it. It's easier to pretend it's not there than to actually go at it.
Okay. I've been a pastor for 30 years or more, so been around a lot. And there's a lot of extremes, which really is irritating for me, because we always pray and talk with people about anything that's dealing, but we've got the inner healing people that make you go through everything that ever happened to you from grade 1, and if you haven't thought of it, they'll help you remember stuff. Then I've seen the demon side, so they're gonna find out what demon is in charge, and you got to name it, and you got pigs in the parlor, and like you got the whole demonic side of this. And then we've got people who just drug them up, and if you numb them enough where they're going through life in a zombie-like haze. Where are you in all this?
Yeah, well, in fact, that was the problem when I got involved with mental health. I then discovered all of this problem you just described, and I realized this was a mess.
It's a mess.
And that there were like 3 silos. There were the silo that it's all medications,
right?
And then there's a silo that it's all deliverance, and the silo is it's all inner healing. You
hit the nail on the head.
And that all the groups criticized each other and judged each other, and they all trumpeted their successes and then pointed out all the failures of the other 2. But then in my practice, I was seeing people make full recoveries with medications from their depression.
So you did?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's why I stayed in mental health. I mean, if I wouldn't have stayed in it for 26 years if I never saw anyone get better.
Did you have any demonic manifestations?
Well, yes, actually. That's how I learned about the second part. But yet, when I started doing medications, the inner healing and the counselors and the deliverance people, they thought I was a tool of Satan.
Wow.
Yeah, because I was giving secular treatment to a spiritual issue. So I was tremendously criticized for giving pills. But then how I sorted out, was I really a tool of Satan, was I started getting demonic manifestations in my office, which is a very, very strange experience.
It is a strange.
I admitted a lady to hospital, and during my interview, she was depressed. I was just asking my normal medical questions, and her eyes glazed over. A voice came out of her and said, "Leave her alone, she's ours." Well, what do you do with that? You know?
You'd probably be in shock as a doctor.
I was totally in shock, because I was raised in the church, so I knew nothing about demons. All I knew is that they were overseas. They wouldn't be in Canada. And it was a missionary issue that I would never see that. And this lady had never been out of Canada, and I thought, how'd that ever happen? And so I had loads of demonic manifestations, and the demonic was totally opposed to what I was doing. There was a demonic attack against people coming to see me. So I thought, well, if Satan is that upset about people coming to see me for their medicine, I must be doing something right.
Right. Yeah, I don't think the devil is helping us invent drugs to bring pain control and things like that. So Christians got to kind of wake up to the whole man, don't they?
Yeah, and then I discovered the inner healing issue is when my wife and I had a marriage crisis. Well, there was no pill for her. It wasn't a deliverance issue.
Would have been nice.
I knew she needed help, but the problem was me, and so that we had to actually go and see an inner healing counselor, and he walked us through the inner healing process, and I thought, oh, this is very valuable. So then I realized, or God showed me, that there were people who were making tremendous recoveries through deliverance, because some of my patients went for deliverance prayer, and they were completely transformed. So I thought, well, that's very valuable. And then I saw people and myself going through the inner healing process, and we were changed. It saved our marriage. And I saw people recover with medicines, and God just said, these are all valuable treatment paths. Why don't you just do them all and stop criticizing? Why don't you just bless them all and show people how to integrate the 3 models? So when I wrote the book, all I did was divide the book into the 3 parts. Here's the role of medicines, here's the role of deliverance, here's the role of inner healing, and why don't you just do everything and you'll get better faster? I mean, it wasn't that smart.
No, I think you are, but we're going to take a break right here. And then let's come back and let's just start unpacking some of this stuff. I know that we're not going to be able to get through every point that people need and put a little bow on it, but I think we can say enough so that people can get the book. And there's other ways. They can go onto your website and figure out ways to get help because this is a huge issue. So we'll be right back with Dr. Grant Mullen.
When someone comes into my office, after I make the pleasantries, I say, can you shut your mind off? And if they say I can't shut my mind off, then I know they have a chemical imbalance.
We believe Jesus Christ came to give every person on this planet a chance to live with power, passion, and purpose. Through award-winning, world-class TV programs like this and life-giving resources in Spanish, French, Italian, Russian, and Hindi, Spirit Contemporary is changing lives around the world. Considerable expenses are involved, but each person reached is absolutely worth the cost. People are saved, their faith revived, eternities transformed, all because of your support. With your donation today, you will receive today's special resource.
To love someone doesn't mean you are responsible for rescuing them. Taking on the responsibility for someone else's problems often does more harm than good. When it comes down to it, we often feel the need to rescue others because we get something out of it. Sometimes we like the control. Other times, solving someone's crises gives us a hit of people-pleasing euphoria. In both cases, we end up becoming enablers, making it easier for people to avoid taking responsibility for their issues. Instead, we can learn to stand with people as they trust God and work at solving their own problems. In Luke 22, 31-34, Jesus modeled how to support someone without taking on their problem. Jesus knew that Peter was going to stumble, but he didn't offer to jump in and fix his problem. Many people assume that the Christian thing to do is to wade into people's problems to try to rescue them, even if it means getting in over their heads. If that were true, Jesus would have taken over responsibility for getting Peter to resist temptation, but that's not what he did. Jesus simply gave Peter the information that had been revealed to him, let Peter know that he was praying for him, and then turned Peter's attention back to what was really important, the fact that he was needed to strengthen his brothers. As you prepare to get together with family this Christmas, resist the urge to fix people or jump in to rescue them from their problems. Instead, pray, encourage, be a great example, and provide resources to support your friends and family as they work at solving their own problems.
Welcome back. My guest today is Dr. Grant Mullen, and we're talking about this book, Emotionally Free. I want to encourage you to get a copy because of all the things we're talking about today, we can't put it all together. We're just scratching the surface, and every one of us can use this read and probably know a lot of people that it'll help. All right, let's start talking about this thing because you're a medical doctor, so you understand the body. You understand drugs because even to put people to sleep, you know a lot. You've had to have a lot of extra training when it comes to pharmacology. Mm-hmm. And now you're getting all these Christians coming into your office. One group is saying, don't you dare give them a medication that is not faith. And if you had faith, you wouldn't be prescribing drugs, and drugs stops the miracle that God's trying to do, basically, right?
Absolutely. Or that it covers up the root issue and it delays your healing if you go on medicines.
Okay, let's talk about medicine first then. And I'm going to ask you probably they're not tough questions for you, but for a lot of people, because we all know somebody who's in years of trying to find the right meds. Mm-hmm. Why is that? Like they'll go on a med, then months and months and months you wait, and then they got to switch it.
Yeah.
And then it takes time to go off it, then you get the new one on it. I know people, it's a year or two before they even find something that helps. Is that normal?
Yeah, yes, actually it is, depending on the severity of the condition. I mean, there are some people with very simple depressions. The first pill you give them, in 2 weeks, they're new people. I mean, that does happen, yeah.
Now, why can a pill do that in a nutshell?
I never say the word in a nutshell in a mental health context. Yeah, I learned that in my office. I used to say that too. Yeah.
So what you found is meds, they do work. You
Yeah.
saw people not only get help, but begin to lead normal lives.
Oh, totally.
And they got closer to God after they're on the meds?
Absolutely. I had one lady, she came in for her regular pill renewal from depression, and she had made a complete recovery, and she says, God's in these pills. And
Wow.
I said, what do you mean by that? Because you know that you don't say that very loudly in public, God's in these pills. She says, when I take the medicines, God reappears. When I don't take the medicines and my depression comes back, God disappears.
Wow.
You see, and what that is just a wonderful way of saying is that when her mind was clear and her mood was normal, God seemed very close. But when she was depressed and couldn't shut her mind off, God seemed unreachable. So there's an enormous connection between your mood and your spiritual life. In
Sure
fact,
there is.
you can. What I learned was depression, any mood disorder, but depression particularly, can really wipe you out spiritually.
Yeah.
Because with a mood disorder, you can't shut your mind off. And so if you can't shut your mind off, you can't concentrate. So then it's hard to read the Bible. It's hard to pray. It's hard to worship, and you sure don't want to go to meetings. And those are the 4 things we do to be devotional. So mood disorders can just wipe you out spiritually. But then when you correct the mood disorder and you return to normal, then your spiritual life is reactivated.
So are you saying then, for those who are watching, that a brain can be going all over the place, and you can't focus to get the prayer you need, the devotion you need, and a med
Yeah.
will help that person just
Yeah, and I remember
focus
the
in.
first time I heard that, I couldn't believe it either, okay? But here's what actually happens is, the way we diagnose a mood disorder is when someone comes into my office, after I make the pleasantries, I say, can you shut your mind off? And if they say, I can't shut my mind off, then I know they have a chemical imbalance. You see, there are brain chemicals that are to give you thought control. And if those chemical levels are low, like the serotonin level, if that level's low, you can't control your thoughts and you can't shut them off. So you have what I call high thought traffic. Your mind's just busy, busy, busy. So in depression, the thoughts you can't shut off are really negative. In anxiety, the thoughts you can't shut off are really worry. In bipolar, you switch from really negative to really pumped and driven, but you can't shut your mind off. Now, there are medicines that can actually correct that chemical imbalance and return thought control to normal, so your mind is actually clear and thought control returns. But the reason there's such a stigma about medicines, particularly in the church, is one, when modern psychiatry was born with Freud, he was totally anti-Christian. So at that point, the church said psychiatry is all evil because the founder was anti-Christian. But Freud's been disposed of, okay? No one talks about him anymore,
Yeah,
okay?
he's gone.
Psychiatry now basically is an internal medicine specialty to get people on the right medicines. Psychiatry is very physical now. And psychiatry also got a bad reputation because back in the 50s and 60s, the only thing they had was Valium. So everyone got bombed out on Valium. Well, so that's just a tranquilizer. So that doesn't solve anything. That just makes you numb. Okay, so you might as well drink. Okay, it's not much different from alcohol. And so then the church looked and said, all psychiatric medicines are bad because they just numb you out, because that's actually what Valium did. And they just, all these people numb, they never dealt with any issues. They were not actually any better at all. They're just covered over with a fog. But then, in the 80s, they actually discovered the chemicals responsible for thought control. And modern antidepressants actually correct that chemical imbalance, restore the brain chemistry so your mind clears, and you don't need to be fogged out. You can be very sharp and in control of your thoughts.
So professionals can be dealing with this and go straight back to their practice, their business, because their brain chemicals have been balanced out.
Oh yeah, you can make a complete recovery of a mood disorder. Schizophrenia is a little harder to treat, but with depression, anxiety, and bipolar, you can make 100%, well, it's common to make a complete recovery and have no symptoms at all as long as you stay on your medicines, which is really no different than treating diabetes. If you stay on your insulin, you can have a normal blood sugar. If you wear glasses, you can have 20/20 vision. But if you take your glasses off, you won't. And so if you stop your medicines, then you'll just go back to having a cluttered mind and unstable mood.
Why do you think that the brain's chemicals are unbalanced? Is it just the fallen world and what would you say?
Well, that was the original problem, obviously, because there was no diseases before the fall.
Right.
But it is a genetically inherited malfunction. So
Okay.
mood disorders run really strong in families. So what happens is you inherit a genetic predisposition for your serotonin level to drop. So it's no different than short-sightedness.
Yeah.
It runs in families. You're born with a tendency to be short-sighted and you wear glasses. So you're born with a tendency for your serotonin levels to drop and your mood will drop. And then if you have a lot of traumatic events in your life, it'll just drop faster. And so that so that it is it's an interplay between your genetic predisposition and the events of your life. So if you're really traumatized, it'll push your chemical down faster, but the medicines can actually bring it up. But to answer your question, why does it take so long to find the right medicine?
Right.
It's because in your brain you have receptors for the serotonin and stuff, but everyone has a different shape. It's like your fingerprint. Everyone has a different shape receptor, and you have to match the antidepressant molecule to the shape of the receptor, and we have no way of telling what any person's shape is. So just try that one, try that one, try that one. It's like a key in a lock. You're trying different keys until the lock opens.
See, some of the complaints I hear from people like in our church who are getting help is that it's trying to find somebody who's got the time. Because our medical system is so fast-paced, and the numbers are pop in, pop out. They'll look at you, talk to you for a few seconds, and they don't feel like someone is sitting down and actually listening to them, signs and symptoms, etc. Do you see that as a problem as well?
Yes, and that's why doctors sent them to me, because when I had a mental health clinic, I gave up. It was very hard to do mental health with earaches and back pain. Okay, so eventually I realized that if I'm going to do mental health, I have to stop all my other activities. So doctors would send their people to me so that I would have the time to fiddle with their medicines and get it right. Because the average GP is too many other competing things for his time. So that is what I did. And so that was most of my practice, was helping people get on the right medicines. And then once their mind is clear, leading them to the spiritual, emotional healing paths, if they're Christians, which would be the prayer ministry, the counseling. But it's very hard to do deliverance, inner healing, prayer ministry if you can't shut your mind off.
So, exactly. So now serotonin, for example, is that something that you use up like gasoline? Is it so that if you go through a trauma, let's say a death or a hugely emotional situation, do you am I saying that right? Would you burn up more serotonin and need more of it?
We know for certain that traumatic life events can drop your serotonin level.
Yeah.
No one knows why or how.
Okay.
All we know is that if you have a weakness in that area, a traumatic life event can really precipitate a drop, and your mood is so much worse. And so we don't know how that is. But then see, a lot of people think that because there was a traumatic event which caused their depression, they shouldn't need pills, because that's an old way of thinking. But if your serotonin level is low from whatever the cause, medicines can help.
Yes.
And so that's what I try to help when I teach this in churches, to help people say, here are the symptoms of a mood disorder, and there's nothing un-Christian about taking your medicines. If you wear glasses, you can take medicines to correct your mood.
Well, if you're going to have your teeth fixed, we're taking a medicine to numb that. They're injecting it into your jaw to keep the pain down. So I know that there is, in the healing movement, there's this group that if you take a medicine, then you are doubting God.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're doubting God, then you are in unbelief and you're never going to get healed. So I laughingly say this all the time in our church. I just say, when our kids were small and they were sick with fevers, we just prayed the prayer of faith and anointed them with Tylenol.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it just sets people free that if pastor's doing that, then maybe it's okay. I mean, I've had surgeries. I mean, I could keep trying to faith it and die, but I'd rather be here, and God created doctors, so I'm going to have the surgery.
Well, I asked the people who came to see me, they said, I shouldn't take these pills because, all those reasons. And I said, well, who do you think sent you here?
Very good.
I said, you're a Christian. Who do you think sent you here? And then the conversation just sort of goes flat. Oh. I said, what if God sent you here to be told what I just told you, and that you could actually be set free, and your mind could be clear, and you could spend the rest of your life walking in victory if you just followed my advice?
Another thing, like for every mile of truth, there seems to be 2 miles of ditch. At the same time, I hear a lot of backlash from people about meds that haven't been properly vetted, and they're out there and they're hurting people. Would you admit at the same time you've got to be careful? The doctor you're seeing better know what he's doing.
Well, yeah. I mean, every medicine has a potential risk. I mean, my goodness, every time you get into a car, there's a risk.
Yes.
And there's more people dying from car accidents than from antidepressants. But
yeah.
So yes, any useful tool can be used incorrectly. So I mean, same with power tools. And so you just have to know how to use the tools and use them correctly.
Good. So as a doctor, you understand that, I know you do, but that's not stopping us from saying we still need to figure out the proper application for these meds. Thanks so much, Grant, for sharing with us. We've got to keep doing more programs. We've hardly even touched where we're going to go. I'll be right back.
Devoted, a daily devotional created with you in mind. Easy to read and simple to understand. These 2-minute faith boosters are available in 8 different languages. Watch it on YouTube or have the booklet sent directly to your home. You can also receive Devoted to your email inbox daily. Become inspired as Leon Fontaine shares practical biblical teaching. Devoted is literally at your fingertips. Transform your life with this Spirit Contemporary devotional. Sign up to receive Devoted today.
I'm so glad that you joined us for the program today. What an important topic, emotionally free. We live in a world where emotional things are growing at an exponential rate. It's like every one of us knows somebody struggling with depression, struggling with anxiety disorders, who needs to hear about Jesus and to receive the freedom. You know, this ministry is not only going across your nation, but it's going around the world. And it's crucial for us to better saturate it, get into more cities, into more towns. Your giving can make that possible. And as we don't want to wait for years down the road, there are people that are dying. They're going to eternity without Christ. There are those who are giving up on Jesus or who don't even know Jesus, who need to hear about Him. For your gift of $45 or more, I want to send you this incredible book you've been hearing about called Emotionally Free. It is a prescription for healing body, soul, and spirit. Your gift of $45 or more is going to touch someone's life for eternity. There's an urgency to get this message out. So go to your phones, don't delay. Become a part of how God is touching people in these last days. And I'd love to send you this gift as a thank you.
We trust that you are being blessed, uplifted, and encouraged in your Christian walk through today's program. As a viewer, you should know that we care about you. We value you greatly and appreciate your prayers. Did you know that Miracle Channel is taking the good news of Jesus Christ around the world through award-winning programs like this? We are actively translating ministry programs into languages like Spanish, French, Italian, and even Russian. We even air on Islamic television stations in the Middle East. This means that millions upon millions of people are hearing about Jesus Christ in their language, and it's all thanks to people like you. Considerable expenses are involved, so we need your support, because each person who gives their life to Jesus is absolutely worth the cost. Each is of infinite value to God. You are very important to us. We care greatly about your spiritual growth, which is why we would like to get today's resources into your hands. When you support this program by making a donation, you are not only enriching your walk with the Lord, you are sharing Jesus with someone on the other side of the globe. Your donation transforms lives by reaching literally millions of people with the gospel. Call now and change someone's life today.
Don't miss tomorrow's show. Leon chats with well-known author Larry Osborne on the topic of his book, Thriving in Babylon.
So when I go out into the world looking down on people, thinking poorly, they know that. And then I wonder why they don't want to hear me tell them about Jesus.